Hello, everyone. And today we're talking about teaching students with Down syndrome. And in particular, we have some objectives for today's meeting. We're going to gain an understanding of Down syndrome and how it impacts learning.
Oh, I can't hear you.
Sorry, is that anybody else? Is that a problem? Can you hear me?
Everything is okay.
Okay, Anne, can you hear me? Anne, does it work or no? Okay. Looks like just a moment.
Hey, I'm coming on.
Ivan, I can't hear you.
But we can hear you. Can you hear me now? Just a moment, we'll try to fix that. Looks like we can hear you. And so check 1 2. Does it work now? And hello?
Ivan, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand. Is there something else I can help with?
Okay, great.
Okay, now I can hear you, Ivan.
All right, cool. Yeah, thank you. So yeah, that works. We could hear you all the time. So yeah,
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine. Great. Let me just start from the beginning of the announcement of the aims and the topic. Okay, I'm going to continue the recording. All right, so today we're talking about teaching students with Down syndrome, and in particular, we're going to talk about the following things. So we're going to gain an understanding of Down syndrome and how it impacts learning. We're going to learn some teaching strategies that support students with Down syndrome, and we'll share some adapted activities that meet the needs of students with Down syndrome. And for this, we have Anne Clement, an expert in this field, who is going to help us to get that better understanding of this topic. So Anne, the floor is yours. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and what's going on in your life. How are you connected to this topic? And you're welcome to give your presentation.
Okay, let me share, see if this goes on. Can you see that?
Not yet. Not yet, not at this point. Are you sharing the whole screen or just the presentation itself, like the screen with the presentation?
It should just be the first part of the presentation.
So we don't have anything so far.
Let's see.
Take your time, no worries at all. So we're ready to wait.
Trying to see where. No. Maybe I don't even know how to get it off here. Maybe.
So what if I start sharing the screen for you? Let's do it like that. Yeah. So it looks like it may be different to you right now because we have the participants here, and it might look a little bit different rather than you practiced or
я ходила мишка на автобус.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. Cool. I'm sharing my screen back, and we're ready to start. So just let me know when I should move to the next slide, right?
Okay.
It's there.
Okay, great. I will go ahead and start. I hope everybody can hear me. So the topic is how to create a safe learning environment for children with special education needs. And today we'll be talking about teaching children with Down syndrome. Okay, next. As Ivan said, my name is Anne, and my vocation, I started out as a speech language therapist in a regular school. Then I became head of a primary school and then director of special programs for special education needs students from birth to 21 years of age. And I have been doing this in Colorado and also in Slovenia. So I want to tell you, I really don't know much about the Ukraine educational system. I'm sorry to say, I don't know much about the teacher training for regular or special teachers or the educational program for students. So what I would ask is that you take whatever you want from my presentation and make it work for you in your environment. My terms may be a little bit different than yours, but I'm sure we can find some common goals. Okay, the course outline, we'll talk about what is Down syndrome, what are curriculum standards and assessments to consider in with Down syndrome, teaching strategies, how to adapt curriculum, and then I'll leave in at the end plenty of time for questions. And as we look at these 4 points, almost any of them could be a class by itself. So I'm only going to present certain points that I consider most important to our topic. Okay. So this is a typical classroom. We've got a teacher here, regular teacher, with maybe about 20 students. This is the first year. We have students who may be just typical students. We may have students that are gifted and talented. We might have some with different language learners. We could have students with specific learning disabilities. And we also have our child here with Down syndrome. Okay, and you can see this is an inclusive class in a regular school. Okay. So what is Down syndrome? Down syndrome is a genetic condition. It's a random error in cell division when the utero is developing. What happens is there's an extra copy of chromosome number 21. So the child with Down syndrome has 47 chromosomes, not 46. If you want to Google Wikipedia on Down syndrome, they have wonderful specific information all about it. So I would suggest that you do that. You'll find it very interesting. Okay. So here's one of my students here in Slovenia. This is when she was in the first year in a regular class, doing her work in the regular classroom. Okay. Here's a boy from Colorado who goes to a regular school. He was in the second year in his program here. And he was really excited because this was the first day he rode a school bus by himself to school. So I just thought I'd introduce you to 2 of the students I've worked with. So when is Down syndrome identified? Several ways. Many women choose to do prenatal screening. And when they take a genetic test, it will show from about the 3rd month on if the embryo has Down syndrome. It's also very obvious at birth because when the child is born, they tend to have slanted eyes, kind of web figures with short little hands. They have a very short neck, usually a real protruding tongue, and they have some deviated toes. Okay. Additional issues that they often have is they often are born with congenital heart defects, which means they have to have multiple surgeries, which complicates their development. Many have hearing problems, so they have to have hearing aids. Many have eye problems, so they have glasses, and they have a much slower growth rate. They tend to be short and kind of pudgy fat. Okay. So this is probably the most significant thing about learning issues with Down syndrome. And I'll mention it many times in this lecture, talking about the cognitive delays. So first of all, the cognitive delays are usually identified somehow in a system. It could be a psychologist at a school. It could be a clinic. It could be a hospital, a counseling center. It varies by country. But with Down syndrome, it's so obvious that it's a physical disability that most students qualify for special services. So I want to show here, these are points taken from a psychological test. There's certain psychological tests for young children, for adults. But when they do and score the test, these points come out, okay? If you have 85 to about 115 points, and there's usually a verbal component to the test and a nonverbal, more of a performance, you're in the normal range. Above 115, you can be gifted and talented. Low intellectual is around 70 to 85 points. Mild, maybe 50 to 69 points. Moderate intellectual deficit, 35 to 50, and severe, 20 to 35. Most children with Down syndrome will be somewhere in these 4 levels. Now, what I like to do with teachers, because, what do points mean? Points are points. I like to equate that to development. So let's say in the normal range, a child is 10 years old. So they're in a certain class, maybe the 3rd level class, whatever. Their speech is normal, their communication is normal, academic is normal, everything. So if you were a low intellectual range, rather than performing like a 10-year-old, you would perform more like an 8-year-old. So you can see almost a 2-year gap being the same age, but cognitively, in terms of your learning, 2 years at least behind. Mild intellectual, you'd be more like a 6-year-old. So here are your peers, 10-year-olds, functioning like 10-year-olds, and this child is functioning more like a 6-year-old. So maybe in the 1st grade. 35 to 50 would be more like a 4-year-old. So you can see the gap here from functioning normal like a 10-year-old to functioning like a 4-year-old. And down here, this child would be functioning more like a 2-year-old. So I hope relating it more to age differences helps you understand the learning patterns, how the child learns, what they're able to learn. But we'll talk about that more in detail. Okay. The cognitive issues are the most significant factor in the education of a child with Down syndrome. It's important, especially whichever of those 4 levels that are at, that you give very concrete information. If you give higher level abstract information, whether you're asking a question or where you're using your teacher's language, the child may not understand. So for example, for concrete, you would have just basic information. Like I would say, this is a pencil. Okay, that's very concrete, very low level. At a more abstract level, I may, which is higher level thinking or problem solving, I might say, what does this do? So I hope you can see the difference between very low level concrete information and abstract information. Okay. Other issues that child with Down syndrome will have will be the motor issues. And this could be their gross motor, which are their large motor skills that affects balance, agility. They also have problems with fine motor, with their writing skills. And we'll talk about adaptations to those later. Okay. A significant part of their learning deficit is in the communication. Because they have larger tongues and they have the motor problems, they often will have speech articulation problems. They will have difficulty understanding language, again, because of that concrete, abstract, intellectual level, but also their spoken language. And one of the significant things with the communication, okay, go to the next one, are the social delays. You might see a child with Down syndrome having what we might call inappropriate behaviors. You might hear them just laughing and kind of talking to themselves and laughing, and you think, what are they doing? Or they could show quite resistive behavior. If they show resistive behavior, what I usually find out, it goes back to the language, the communication problems they don't understand, and these social delays. Because when the child is young, say maybe 3 years old and going to what we would call a preschool or early kindergarten, there's not so much delay between the 3-year-old with Down syndrome and, say, a 3-year-old normal child. Certainly some, but it's not so significant. Year after year, that delay gets larger and larger and larger. So by the time the child with Down syndrome is, say, in the say a 4th class, that the other children in the class have higher level social skills, what they're interested in, what they talk about, the abstract level, and the Down syndrome child feels left out because they don't understand that. So peer interaction becomes more significant, and I'll tell you more about that. So next slide. When we look at what we call curriculum or standards or assessments, we usually look at the academic areas of reading, writing, math, as well as the other areas. But again, remember, the academic gap will continue to be a major factor throughout education as it will increase in time. So we'll talk about strategies for that. Okay, there are different educational environments that are very appropriate for a child with Down syndrome. And you might start out with the regular class with assistance from the regular teacher, maybe a special teacher, maybe an assistant. Or you may be in a regular class, but be pulled out for one-on-one or small group help by a special teacher, assistant, or another regular teacher. You may not be included, and you may be totally in a separate class in a regular school and have a special teacher and assistants. Or you could just go to a special school. What I have found out, often children with Down syndrome, when they're in, say, the 3-year-olds up to maybe the second, so they're maybe 7 or 8, can often be in the regular class with assistants. But the older they get, they may need this level of intervention or this level. Usually they won't need to go to a special school at that point. Okay. So here's a picture of Stephen, and this is his regular teacher in a 2nd-year class and his assistant. And the special teacher and the assistant communicate very well together all the time. Okay. And here you'll see the assistant helping Stephen with his language skills and his writing skills. So she's helping him get better position to write, and she's also helping him hold the pencil better and hold the paper. That's just an example of an adaptation for the motor skills. Okay. So depending on your situation, and I know every situation is totally different, the optimal situation is, in addition to the regular teacher, you'll have, and maybe an assistant, you'll have maybe a speech therapist, an occupational therapist, a physical therapist, adaptive physical education, maybe a vision teacher, a hearing teacher. I mean, that would be the optimum, is you could have all these services. Okay. And I know that's not always optimal, especially with your situation right now in Ukraine. I understand that. So when the child comes to you in your class, what do you know about the child? It can vary. The child may come with a lot of assessments that have been done in their previous school or community. Maybe the psychologist, the teacher doing the academic, the speech therapist doing communication. And they may even have a specific learning plan that has goals and objectives for the year. Okay, or this may not be the situation when the child comes to you. You may have informal notes from a previous teacher, or maybe if the parent is with the child, the parent can share some stuff. Or you may have no information. The child just comes to your classroom. So it just depends on your situation, but you may very well be with no information. The child is there. What do I do? So let's see. All right. So start the child's education with whatever information you have. If there is such information, review it, study it. If there's no information, what I like to do is say, let the child be in the regular class and just observe the child. How do they do with reading skills, with math skills, with social skills, with communication skills? And you'll start to suddenly see where are their strengths and where are their weaknesses. And then as a teacher, like you can do with all students, you can do either formal assessments or informal assessments. And I often find with children with Down syndromes, the informal assessments are sometimes the best. So what is the informal assessment? You pick a book, say it could be a picture book or it could be a reading book. See how the child holds the book, how they turn the page, what they can read. The same with math, you can go through that. And that way you get an actual performance of where you see that child functioning. And what I find, regular teachers are usually so accurate in knowing that. You don't always need a bunch of formal assessments to do that. Just trust yourself as an educator that you know to have that. Okay. So you have to make some decisions for the curriculum that you will be providing to the students. Like I said, I don't understand the Ukraine system that well, but in Colorado and pretty much in Slovenia, we have the regular standards and curriculums that all children, say at the second year, have. And usually it's made by the state or it's made by the school. Or you may have the regular standards, but with adaptations. And we'll talk about those later. Or some children cannot do the regular curriculum at all. It's too much of a gap. They may have a lower standards curriculum that you use. And then you just follow that as the child can. Some places even have minimal standards, which is even lower than the lower standards. And it's pretty much you as a teacher saying, these are the critical things I want the child to be able to do where they are functioning right now in reading, math, writing, etc. Okay. So with curricular learning for a child with Down syndrome, I say it's not remedial, meaning like a child with learning disabilities, and I'll be giving a lecture on that next week. The issue is you want to reduce the gap in learning, and the child either can compensate or learn or learn how to go around with the learning problem. But with a child with Down syndrome, it's not remedial. It's again going from that concrete and abstract learner. So for the child with Down syndrome, the focus should be on practical learning, and later as they progress through the system with an educational focus in later years. So they may go through, I don't know if you have grades 1 through 9, say at a primary school, and they can be there, but then by the time they're looking at a secondary school, you want one that they will come out with practical skills so they can have a job and work. So now we're going to look at the use of teaching strategies, and teaching strategies means what do you do as a teacher to teach the child the best way that child can learn. That's the teaching strategies. The career adaptations are how can you adapt the curriculum so the child can learn? And of course, we use these together. Okay, so let's look at strategies. What the teacher can do to help the child learn. So, okay, one of the first things we look at in the next slide will be the teacher communications. And again, I'm saying focus on concrete, not abstract. And this depends on the cognitive level of the child, but always go more concrete than more abstract. You'll usually know if you're too abstract when the child looks at you like they don't understand or they get resistive or whatever. So, and the level of concreteness is both in how they understand what you're saying and how you're using words. Okay, it might be like you don't use long, complicated sentences. You use just a few basic directions. So the child in their understanding and their expression. Okay. So we're going to talk about different kinds of learners. And for the next part of my presentation, this is not unique to children with Down syndrome. This is unique to children that are gifted and talented, typical children, children with Down syndrome, learning disabilities. These are just good strategies the teacher uses when they know how the child learns. So for some children, they have auditory preference learner. They learn best by hearing. So here are some strategies for that. Okay, I think these, yeah. The teacher or a peer, another child in the class, can read or tell the child the directions. So the child isn't having to read, they are listening and somebody's telling them what to do for the page. Okay, there should have the student repeat the directions. If you say, circle the word that you like, or circle the word that means boy. Have the student repeat the directions back to you so you know that the student understood. So if they say, if you said circle the word boy, and they said circle the word cat, you know that they didn't understand boy and cat. They got the circle right, but they didn't get the boy or cat. So then you can say it again. We call it check for understanding. to make sure the child understands what you're saying. Then it's often really good to pair auditory learning with visual learning. It just gives them two modalities to learn better. So if they're strong in auditory and weaker in visual, you can pair the two together. Okay, the next is a child with they're visual learners. They learn best by seeing. Okay. Visual learners present pictures with the auditory. So if you're showing something in a book, you show the picture, this is a cat, and then they hear it. Okay, but they have the picture to see the word as well as the auditory. Write the directions down. You know, circle the word or print the word or read the word so that they can see the directions and not just hear, because the visual learner will do better seeing. Show pictures, whether it's a flashcard for math or pictures, vocabulary word pictures or whatever. The visual learner will learn and remember more if they see the pictures. Reduce auditory distractions. A visual learner has to really focus on the vision. But if there's a lot of noise in the background, it's hard for them to focus visually. So here's some things you can do to reduce the distractions. Okay. Oh, well, to reduce the auditory distractions, you can use headphones for the child. So the outside noise is not heard. Okay. You can also use a lot of visual guides as strategies. Use a bookmark. So as they're reading, they can follow along with a bookmark. That helps them visually. Or if they don't have the bookmark, use of a finger. Sometimes a bookmark is distracting. They're trying to move it and they don't move it right. Just have them use their finger to read or do the math. Okay. The number line on the desk, we would take like the numbers 1 to 20 for a young child, the first level, and then they can look right on their desk and see what the number is when they're doing their math. Or the same with an alphabet line. You can put the alphabet on their desk so that they can look at that. Flashcards, both for math and for reading, are really good for the visual learner so that they can see what's on the card and remember that rather than just hearing it. And writing tasks. Flashcards, writing tasks are really good for the visual learner so that they can write. Pencil and paper are writing tasks that are really good for visual learners because they'll be writing and they'll be watching what they are writing. Okay, another kind of learner is the tactile learner. And these are kids who learn best by touching. And I find this is often the case with a younger Down syndrome child. They like to touch things. So maybe if they're learning numbers or letters, you can give them like a box with some sand in it, and they can make the numbers or the letters in the sand. That way they can feel how the letters go. Or you can give them objects to touch, especially like in math. They can use those little squares in counting, and they can touch. Use manipulatives as much as possible. Anything they can feel and touch. If they're doing vocabulary words, if you have, especially with a younger child, like a little toy horse or a toy bike or something, they can see those and touch them. And we have the multimodality, means some children learn best using all: hearing, vision, touch. So then use them all. But you can tell by observing the child which modality they will use the best. It doesn't mean you don't use the others. It just means you stress the one that is their strength. Because with all children, we want to teach through the strength to the needs. This is an interesting, there was research done showing teachers usually teach to the modality that's their strength. So if I'm an auditory learner, I will teach more the auditory way to the children in my class. But you can see if I'm teaching more auditorily and the child with Down syndrome is more of a visual learner, we kind of have a clash. So I need to adjust so that I use more vision if that's the child's strength. Okay, now we'll talk about those are teacher strategies, just different techniques. They're very simple. You just you probably do them all the time without even hardly knowing it, but they're just strategies. Now we're going to look at ways to adapt the materials in the curriculum. And you can use this with any curriculum, regular curriculum, minimal curriculum. The first is time. Sometimes the child needs more time to do, let's say you're doing a math worksheet, and most children can do it in 5 minutes. This child may need more time because they're doing it at a slower rate, so they may need additional time. It could be the opposite. Maybe they can only attend for 5 minutes, and it would take 10 minutes to do the paper. Just give them 5 minutes and then say, fine, that was very good. That's all they needed to do. They didn't need more time. Divide into smaller segments. You can take a paper and cut it rather than having the whole paper with 4 things on it. Cut them into little pieces so that then they can just look at the little pieces rather than be overwhelmed by the huge page. Reduce the quantity of work. Sometimes we think that in order to learn something, you need to do it 10 times, but that's not always the case, because this child may learn as well doing it 5 times, 10 times, because they may lose their attention after going to number 6, and then they're not learning well. So sometimes you reduce the number of tasks, and this is especially in math. And also you can do, I'll show you some examples of reducing the work in reading and math assignments and reading and writing. Okay, so here's an example. This would be what I would call a minimum adjustment. This over here on the left side of the screen is what you would give to the typical learner in your class. And the subject is where in the world is something, and they have these vocabulary words down here. Well, for this child, if you look on, I think it's the right hand of your screen, I only gave 5 or 6 of the words. I crossed out the others because they didn't need to do that many words. I wanted them to learn the 5 or 6 words well before they did the others. Okay. For a more moderate, I would, on the top, this is the one the typical student would do. I would go down, I would erase the words that they had, and I would put in the words that I wanted the student to learn from this exercise. So it's still doing the same exercise as the other students, but it's modifying, adjusting the curriculum for where the child is at. Okay, spatial organization. How do the children organize in space? One is the elimination of interfering information. If you look at most children's worksheets, like the one I just showed you before, there's stuff all over it. Sometimes you just want to block it out or cut off some of the extra stuff so they don't have to be so overwhelmed with all the stuff on a page. Okay. Also, children with Down syndrome, especially if they have these visual problems as well, do better learning things up close rather than far away. So if you were going to write some things on the board for the child to have to look up and see, give the child a paper with those things right up near so that they can see them. Again, you can use the same thing. Or you can use a bold marker to separate the information on a page. So here you're helping them organize space so that they learn better. Or just divide the pages into separate pages. Like I said, take your scissors and cut it into half or 4 pages. Okay. And you'll see here, this is an example that Stephen, this is what the regular class would do. They'd put the date up here. They would read, have a good day or good morning. And then they would under here write good morning and stuff. But here we said to Stephen, we would read what the words are and let him choose what he would like to say and just circle it rather than having to write it. Then down here, we wanted him to do his name. So we put little dots so he could just trace the dots rather than just have to recall all the letters of his name. Okay, attention. As much as possible, limit the distractions that are going on. And I know in a regular class, you can't limit all distractions, but you can maybe try some. And you can do this by, the use of special space. Where you put the child's desk in the classroom. Maybe the child should be in the front of the room rather than back, because at the front he can see the teacher better. If you're in the back of the room, you see all the kids busy getting up, doing this and that can be distracting to them. Again, earphones are very easy to use. They distract a lot of the noise that's going on in the classroom so the child can focus and attend more to the task. Small group. You know, we don't always have to teach the children 20 or 30 at a time. Sometimes you can, as a classroom teacher, take your 20 children and divide them into 5 groups. One group is working with you in a circle on reading. Maybe the others are at their desk working on reading. Call the name for attention. Like I may say, David, what do you call this? Then he can tell me. But if I don't call his name, he might not be attending. He might be looking around to others. So the calling the name gets the attention, and it's easy to do. And energy. Children with Down syndrome, as well as other learning problems, they have to use so much energy to learn. And sometimes we forget this. I say sometimes they use twice as much energy, if not more, to learn the same thing that one of their peers would have. So think about the energy that they're using. And with that, sometimes say, okay, we'll work for 5 minutes and then go relax. Go pick a toy to play with. Go pick a book to look at, because they need what we call downtime. They need time just to relax, kind of regroup their thoughts, and then come back to work. And again, the position of the desk, like I mentioned, sometimes being right up in the front, it's easier for you as a classroom teacher to see what they're doing. It's easier for them to focus on you. Then we have their motor skills. Again, rather than using a smaller pen, you might want to find like a larger pen for them to use, because it's easier to hold on to a larger pen than it is a smaller one. Like Stephen was doing, maybe circle the answer rather than having to write it out. Sometimes you might have the child tell you the answer and not have to write it. I don't have one with me, but there's like a little triangle gadget you can put on the pencil, and this helps them hold the pencil better so that they don't keep falling down on the pencil. And also use of computers. Children with Down syndrome, either they can use the regular computer or iPad, or we can even get an adapted keyboard that they can use. And they can be great with the use of a computer. So because it takes so much energy for the child with Down syndrome to learn, you want to make learning fun and rewarding. So it's just some basic things that you do with all your children. Maybe do a check mark to show that they got the answer right. Do a lot, especially with the younger children, with putting a stamp on their paper or sticker, just using verbal praise, good job, that's right, I like how you did it, or a nonverbal, just a pat on the back, good job. But you will notice that the more reinforcers for learning, the more they will attend and stay on the task. Okay, now, the other thing is the child will not need all the same adaptations in all areas all the time. So you'll decide as a teacher, what adaptations that we talked about do I need in reading? What do I need in math? What do I need in writing? And because we all vary day by day, you might need more one day than another day. Sometimes we find out that children, when they come on Monday to school, have forgotten stuff over the weekend. So they need more adaptations on Monday. By Friday, they're into the routine and have it again, so they don't need as many. Okay, then Monday comes again, so we start over. So children with Down syndrome, because they're learning at that more concrete level, we need a lot of repetition every day, every week, every month, as needed. Just because you say, what is this? And say a pencil, that doesn't mean they will know it later that day or tomorrow. So whatever you've taught them, keep repeating the learning so that they really integrate and they know what they need. So there are many unlimited possibilities with children with Down syndrome. I always say, provide opportunities for learning and see how they do. Because some people say, oh, I don't think they can do that, so I'm not going to let them watch this movie because they won't understand. No, let them watch the movie and see what they learned. Because I have children with Down syndromes, they're ballerinas, they play the violin, they're gymnasts, they're real sports people. Never decrease their opportunities. The other thing is use the other children in their class. Their classmates are great, but not to do the work for them, but more as special helpers or friends. And they can model, they can see what the other kids are doing. And that's one of the best ways for children to learn is by looking at what the other kids are doing. So just a quick summary of our kind of 30-minute quick lecture that I gave. What is Down syndrome? What decisions as teachers do you need to make for curriculum, standards, assessments? What are some teaching strategies you can use? And what are some career adaptations? And what many regular teachers tell me, you know, Anne, what you've taught for us to use with the child with special needs are same things we should use with all students for better learning. So it's true. So now I would like to open it up for questions. However, Yvonne, you think it's best to do that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for that incredible presentation. Yeah, definitely. It's something that we kind of, every teacher has in this or that way gone through that introduction to the Down syndrome, but now we have that kind of deeper understanding. So we do appreciate that so much for those details. I've learned a lot of things. And yes, at this point, dear participants, you may have your questions. Just make sure you ask anything. I believe we're very open here, so we can ask anything. Just even if you think it's like very basic, it's okay. So let's ask anything. And again, you may put down your questions in the chat and try to voice them out.
Okay, can I?
Yes, Yulia, you're welcome with your question.
Hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I think all your advice concerning Down syndrome, kids with Down syndrome, could be applicable for all kinds of. So not only Down syndrome,
Right.
but with another deficiencies, as well.
Yeah. Exactly. That's why I say generalize to everything.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. And the question would be, how can we help the individuals with children with Down syndrome to push up their self-esteem?
I think it's giving, first of all, help them interact with their peers as much as possible. Because what I find is, especially when they're a little bit older, they don't understand what the peers are doing, or they don't understand the activity. So they tend to not feel good about themselves and go back. So have their peers help and work with them. And that makes them feel better. Sometimes for the self-esteem, I will, in the class, each week, pick a different student to be their special friend for that week. That way they're included not only in the class, but at lunchtime, at recess, or whatever. But I just think that constant reinforcement.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And by the way, I'm sorry, I've just found out that there are 3 kinds of Down's syndrome.
And actually, if you go to Wikipedia and Google, it will talk about the different kinds. Most are one kind, but yeah, they get very specific, and there are different kinds.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I definitely like that idea to have that a special friend for a week. So that's definitely I believe this is not only beneficial for the student with Down syndrome, but as well for the person who is going to be that friend, because, that's kind of extra responsibility. And I believe he or she may get, extra understanding of people and learn how to act with such.
Exactly. And I think it's important for the children in the class, for them to, whatever level they're at, to understand what Down syndrome is. Because I had one student, it was a younger sibling of a child with Down syndrome. And they said to me, Miss Ann, when will I get Down syndrome? They thought it was something you caught, like the flu or something.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I think it's really good. If the parents are there to say to the parents, can we explain to the children in the class about your child? And I think it's really good. I even have one student now that I started working with here in Slovenia when she was 6. Now she's like 27. She goes around and gives presentations on what is Down syndrome and what it's like to have Down syndrome. I mean, it's amazing. So I think that self-concept is such an important part. You just don't want them to feel isolated and alone.
That's incredible. So I believe that, yeah, that's actually the thing about the inclusivity. So we want to include them and we want the society to understand. And to this matter, actually, Julia has before the presentation, has shared a link to a movie about a person with Down syndrome. So again, that's a very powerful push. And I believe that's what we want to know. So the world should be ready for the interaction with such people. And, you know, I think that's going to make us make this world a more comfortable place for such people.
Exactly. And often what I tell, say other parents or whatever, the children in the class with a child with Down syndrome, someday they may be the parents of a child with Down syndrome. So you're right, it gets them to understand, first of all, they are children. Second of all, they are children with Down syndrome. So not to be afraid of them, to understand them, and that's so important.
Incredible. Thank you. Any other questions, everybody? Anybody? So at this point, I was thinking, like, I have never worked with such students, but does it ever occur that a student with Down syndrome could like misbehave and express some aggression, or I don't know, any kind of these things
Absolutely.
that you
And
want to be
I do a
aware of?
whole I do a whole day's lecture on behavior problems with children with Down syndrome. But what usually is, it's a communication issue, not so much a significant behavior. They just don't understand, they're frustrated, they don't know what to do. And so they get angry and get resistive and stuff. So they are telling you by their actions that something isn't right. They don't understand or they're frustrated. That's when you kind of back up, observe, take a lower level, more concrete. Yeah. Now, of course, there are some children with Down syndrome who do have significant behavior. I mean, I've had children with Down syndrome that are also severe autistic children.
Okay.
Have that severe acting out, you know, and who knows why they are acting out, but they need to have behavioral consequences. So, you know, you can't say, oh, well, they have Down syndrome, so they can hit somebody. No, they have to have the rules and consequences for that. And of course, the earlier you do that, the better it is.
Okay, yeah, so treating them as normal students, that's just that's what makes sense.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah. Any other questions? Thank you so much, Anne, for that. And definitely it's opening us, you know, the entire new universe, I would say, because as you mentioned, so this was just a 30-minute presentation and there's so much more to it, to this topic, and definitely that's just great. All right. Any other questions? It could be, I believe, some hypothetical questions. So obviously not all of the teachers here have students with Down syndrome in their classes, but who knows, you know, maybe in future, maybe they're going to know some friends who have teachers who have students like that. So maybe you can think of some question, anybody.
Can I ask?
Yes, Victoria, you're welcome.
Okay, I wanted to ask the same questions that you, how we can correct the behavior, because I have a boy at first grade, and he wants all time play, and he wants go out the door on the lesson. And I say him, please sit down, be quiet, don't chat. But he didn't hear me. And it's very difficult for me. Thank you.
Well, and what I would suggest is when you start seeing those behaviors, you know, reduce the work, give him more reinforcement, give him some relaxing time to go and do what he wants to do. Because I think when he acts out like that, he's trying to tell you, I'm frustrated, I'm having trouble learning, you know, such as that. So, but I think it's very important that you don't allow aggressive behaviors or inappropriate behaviors, and they have consequences. You know, maybe they have to go sit at a chair for a while and leave the group, or maybe, you know, time out. But I think it's almost like if a child is acting like a 2-year-old, then think, what would I do with my 2-year-old if they were acting that way? And then use that consequence. Redirecting them, you know, if they're starting to act out on their reading, then maybe say, okay, maybe the reading is too hard. Let's get a different book, or have their peer work with them. But yeah, the behavior, you have to get on it right away.
Thanks
But
a
again,
lot.
depending on their level, I always say, if they're acting like a 2-year-old, treat them behaviorally like you would a 2-year-old. If they're acting like a 4-year-old with behavior, treat them like a 4-year-old. And that's an easy way to say, how would I treat this 4-year-old if they were pushing their work away and not wanting to work? But I think,
Thanks a lot.
what do you think the child is trying to tell you with their behaviors? And I always say, you get more when you reinforce good behaviors than if you punish bad behaviors. So I always say, catch the child while they're doing something right and give them a lot of praise. It goes much further than punishment, but punishment is needed.
That's incredible. Thank you. And thank you, Victoria, for your question. And at this point, I have a question to Victoria, and maybe we can have some more questions arising from that. So does he like express any kind of, positive changes or any kind of success during the lesson? So can he do anything successfully, and does it happen in the class?
You asked me because
Yes, Victoria. That's a question to you. Yeah. So you're a student in the first grade.
That I had success over my lessons with this child.
Yeah. It
Okay,
could be a small
I have
one, like a.
I have only English lesson, yes, and in this class there is assistant, but sometimes she is absent. And what I give this boy, it's flashcards. And we, on the one lesson, we cut the masks with animals, and this task was interesting for him. But another tasks like repeat together or her, he didn't like. And I think that the most good task for him is visual and something draw. Draw the words, draw the different topics, animals or school things, and difference.
Yeah, so I think that's showing where you're adapting the work. You're still doing the vocabulary or whatever, but you're adapting it down more to the level of the child so that they can learn. Because when the child with Down syndrome can get very frustrated if it's too abstract or too high level work. So kind of think, what was he doing that was good? And how did I adjust the curriculum? How much time did I give him? How much attention did I give him? But it's hard when the assistant isn't there. When you're used to having an assistant help you, that's when I use another student, the friend of the week, to come and help.
All right. So you assign a student again, even in the class, so that even broadens the application of a assistant student. That's even better. Right. Great. Definitely, it could be difficult in the first form because obviously those students are kids as well. And yeah, in general, it's very difficult to to adapt the materials to that student and to the class, so you have like the curriculum to follow and so on. Yeah. Makes sense. And we have a question. We have a message from Irena in the chat. So thank you for sharing your experience. It's an honor to have you here today. And the question is, what to say to primary school students about their classmate with this syndrome? So as far as I understand, like how to inform them and how to present that student to them?
Yeah, like depending on the age of the students in your class and their level, a kindergartner is not going to understand the genetic blah, blah, blah. And so I just explained the child was born that way and they learn a little slower than the other children, but we will help that child learn and they will be part of our class. For maybe a child in the 5th level or something, but they understand a little bit more about anatomy and stuff, maybe they realize that there was a problem before birth that caused the Down syndrome. So that they kind of understand it. There's a reason you're born with Down syndrome and it's a physical problem.
Incredible. So yeah, that's just, it sounds so natural to me, and I believe that students would definitely understand that. So you want to explain, you want to be as direct as possible, well, according to their level of that. And was that a question? Sorry, maybe I just misunderstood you. Was that a question about, or it was just the end of your statement? And
Oh, me?
okay,
No,
that was
no, it was
the
more
end.
of that. Yeah, it was more of explanations are important. To explain to the other children that, you know, you don't have to go into detail for the younger children how they're
Right.
different, but they are, just say that they learn different than we do. And so we need to, you know, help them learn. We need to, you know, give them maybe a little bit different book to read or something. But children are so resilient. I mean, children typically, unless a child has really bad behaviors, they're really quite wonderful with the child with Down syndrome in the class.
Yeah.
Good evening.
Ah.
I have a similar question. I have a boy. He's in the 4th grade. His name is Bogdan, and he has an assistant that sits with him during all the lessons and helps him out. But I noticed during my lessons, his classmates always point out that Bogdan is doing like a more simple activity, or he's not doing he's taking a different test, or he doesn't have to do like some writing activities, and they always point out that. And I was wondering, should I protect that child and when he's not in school, or have like a talk with the rest of the class that they shouldn't do that and they shouldn't point out? Or should I do it in the class when he's there and explain to everyone that this is how it is? Because sometimes they even say, oh, we want to be just like him. We want an assistant.
Yeah. Well, and you know, several things. One, I think it's really good to explain to the children in the class that this child learns different than we do. And that's okay. And he will have different books to read, different papers to do, different tasks to do. But one thing too, sometimes it's good to not have the assistant just work with him, but maybe work with 1 or 2 other students with him. So the kids all get to have the help of the assistant a little bit. Because sometimes they feel like, well, why does that student get an assistant and I don't? So kind of share the assistant like they share you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
it's fine if the child's not there to go into more detail with the children. Yeah.
Okay.
But like I said, this one girl with Down syndrome would explain to her class what she had and why. And it started out when she was probably about in the 4th or 5th level. And now, of course, she does a big presentation on it. But I think the idea that we want to tell all children is we all learn differently, and we all have strengths and we all have needs. And so we want to be a community of learners to help each other the best way we can.
Okay. Thank you very much for that advice. I'll definitely share the assistant with the whole class.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Alena, for your question. Incredible. And yeah, it just brought me to a thought that you could actually demonstrate some kind of a, I don't know, short clip, like, because obviously not every class can have a person who can share about their Down syndrome, but you can share a video with your students so they can get a better understanding of what it is and how people feel about that, and how do people with Down syndrome feel and how they live. And yeah, definitely. So it's all about, you know, raising the awareness of that syndrome. That's very nice. Yeah, got it. All right, so the time is running out, and I believe we are not going to hold Anne here anymore longer. So we have another message of a thank you word. So thanks a lot for the information you shared with us. Definitely, we do appreciate it so much. So your time that you dedicated to us, and Anne has told us that we can. So she's sharing her presentation with us. And we're going to have that, and maybe we're going to use some of the things that were mentioned there. So that's very nice of you, Anne. And thank you so much again for being here with us today. So Ukrainian teachers do appreciate that a lot. So
My pleasure. And I will be in contact with you about next week.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes.
I'll send you an email. We'll do the same situation.
Awesome. It's going to be nice. Thank you so much one more time. So goodbye, Anne. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks. And I thank you, everybody. And thank you for working with all the children, with the regular children and children with special needs. You're very valuable as the regular teachers.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, Anne. All right, cool. So we continue. Thanks a lot for your questions. That was incredible. So I'm going to jump from my presentation. And can I just have a quick poll? So please raise your hand if you have a student with Down syndrome in your class. Or maybe you worked with a student. Maybe you had it like in the previous years. Anybody? Okay, Irena here. We got you. Thank you. All right. Well, obviously, Victoria. Or you may just raise your hand. Okay, it was just I was just wondering like how many of us. And do you think that well, how do like what level of student? No, I mean, I don't even know how to formulate that. So do you think all of the students with Down syndrome can attend school? What does it depend on? Any ideas? So obviously, like with those severe things, severe manifestation of the syndrome, maybe they're not attending. Yeah, so that's like a question. All right,
Maybe-
cool. Yes,
Maybe
Svetlana?
maybe the desire of parents
All right, yeah.
to be among the to study in the primary and secondary schools.
Makes sense, definitely, because some of the parents may happen not want to their children to attend school. All right, that makes sense. Thank you. So now we're going to do a little bit of our sharing of the activities. So the same procedure, please, in the breakout room, share your activities. So the things you did at home, or you may just do it right away here on the go. Again, you will be shared with this file. And here's a link. So this is like a clickable link. If you feel like you need to address the toolkit one more time, so you can just click and it will address you to the part with Down syndrome. So again, share your activities. So one activity for reading, one for writing, one for speaking and listening, and explain your choice, explain how it would work, how it would benefit your children with Down syndrome. Again, obviously we can just, imagine what kind of interaction it would be, but still we are teachers and we are very good and strong at adapting things. So we are doing that like it's our second nature. So definitely want to be able to adapt the activity. So you've got the idea of what Down syndrome is, you've got the idea of what kind of activities these might be. So please share your activities in breakout rooms, and then please choose a presenter, or maybe it could be like a couple of presenters, and share them in a plenary after you come back. So how much time would you need for that? Can you let me know? So normally we have like 30 minutes for that. Do you need more or do you need less? Anybody? You can it's like a chance to
Less.
to work more or less. Okay, thank you. Less. Let it be 25 or 20.
20.
20 minutes. Got it. Anybody else? So thank you. Alana is responsible for the timing today. All right, cool. So 5 groups, that means 5 to 6 participants. So do you prefer to work in bigger groups or in smaller groups? So should we have like 5 groups with the number of participants from 5 to 6, or 4 groups with the number of participants from 6 to 7?
Bigger.
Bigger groups. Okay. What if we make like 3 groups with up to 9 participants? Is it okay?
Too much.
It's too much. Got it. Yeah. So let's make 4 groups, 6 to 7 participants for 35 minutes. Just kidding, for 20 minutes. That's right. And I'm sharing the document with you. So I'll share it in Telegram group as well, so you can have the access from different places. So there you go. Please, if you have any questions, let me know in the Telegram or help button, and I'll be there to help you. So let's start. Thanks for creating the list of the activities and sharing your ideas within the breakout rooms. And group number 1, please share the things you talked about. Share your vision on how to implement the activities into the class where you can have, or where you have a student with special educational needs, and in particular, the Down syndrome.
Okay, I will be introduce my group, our
Great.
group. The first group, okay, reading actions. The first is show flashcards and say the word. Said Anne, child with syndrome, they want to see so different pictures and visual, and we can use different flashcards on the different topics. Use words from students' environment. Yes, they are studying the classroom, and we can say and make up sentences with different things around us, around the children. Playing matching games with words and pictures, using text with clear illustrations. It's not my idea, but matching games with words, yes, it's like match words from one group, for example, animals, for example, fruits or vegetables, and another using text with clear instructions. Yes, because we must say concrete the instruction, what we must do. First, please put up the pictures in one group. 2, say them, and 3, please change the another. Writing actions is using tracing worksheets. Tracing. It's like we have got different colors, pencil or crayons, and we must trace the sentences or some words in the sentence. Use stickers to create sentences with parts of the language. Yes, we can make up different sentences with, for example, with nouns, or only with verbs, or only with adjectives, and have some stickers with this word. Speaking activities, use songs and rhymes. Children like this, and we can learn some songs. For example, it's very funny and activity for children, and move some actions when we sing. Show some toys and pets pictures and describe them. Yes, we show the picture, and please describe what color is the pet, what color is the dog, what he can do, how or you have got the dog, and the people and this boy or girl must say. Answer. Use role play to practice social skills. The children can be some animals. For example, my boy has got a mask of elephant, and he can play that he elephant, and I said them, please sound like animal, and he gives the sound. And for example, listening activities. Listen the stories with sight words. Yes, it's very interesting because sight words, it's very important, and I think that these children like this said Down syndrome, it's very interesting and good for them. Use sound bingo with animal sounds. Yes, sound bingo. It's like we turn on the audio with sounds, and the children must say who is it, and then show the picture and put them in the game. Use Simon Say to practice following instructions. It's like we learned classroom actions, And we play the game. Simon says, stand up, please, sit down, turn around,
Right.
clap your hands, step your feet, and like that.
Thank
That's
you.
all. Thank
Mhm.
you.
Thank you, Victoria, for the presentation of your group. That's just incredible. And definitely it feels like those activities should be suitable for the students with Down syndrome, because obviously you have that experience with your student and you already see what could work with him. And that's great. So that's what we need. Speaking about the tracing worksheets, so I have just stumbled upon a font that you can use in your, for example, Google document or your Microsoft Word. So the font that creates a traceable letter for your students. So you can, I will share it with you. So that's a very simple thing to use. So you may, I'm using it for my first graders. So for their practice in the words, and it could be very useful for the students with Down syndromes or like learning disabilities or any other student that experience difficulty in writing. So it's easy to make a letter, like a big letter, and it's gonna, so you'll try that. You'll see how it works. So not many words to put that. Speaking about the story with sight words, so it might be difficult to find such a story, and here the AI, the application of AI could be useful. So you may just use ChatGPT or whatever language model, and you may ask like, please make a story or a short story with such sight words or include such sight words. And it is going to create a story that could be used, and you're not going to, look for that story on the internet. So you'll just print it out, and that's going to be a very nice example. So please use AI. If it works pretty straightforward. So whatever task you have, just put the right question, formulate the question directly. So what do you want to do? What do you want to get? Try. Maybe it may work. So thank you so much for those ideas. That definitely brings so many other things about. Great. Group number one, incredible. So group number two, what about your ideas? What would you do? Anyone? You may raise your hand or you may just start talking. Just let us know what it is about the game Taboo, how it works with you. Tracing worksheets, again, very good. Magnetic letters, how would you apply them? Anyone, please help us, because we're guessing. We're guessing what to do. We don't know, but we want to find out. Yes, yes,
I'm
yes.
from group number 4, and I had the same activity, the
right.
magnetic letters. So I don't know what our colleagues from group 2 want to, how they want to use this strategy, because I decided to use it like with the flashcards. So we open the flashcard with the name of the animal, and our students should to find the correct letters and write the same word in our board with the magnetic letters.
Thank you. Great.
I'm trying to help.
Yeah, thank you. You're helping. You're really helpful at this point. So I believe you can continue. So group number 4, if you are, Svetlana, if you are the presenter of group number 4. So
yeah, but we have our presentation with the parts. So we have the first part is a reading. I said something about the magnetic letters, but it's about our writing. So we decided that Alina would describe our reading activities, because she has a very interesting activity, bingo word. Alina, can you?
Incredible. Yeah, so Alina, you're welcome.
Thank you. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
So about my activity, it is bingo as we know it, but for students with the Down syndrome, it's a little bit different. So they are more visual learners, yes, so they need to see what they learn, and they need to repeat it a lot of times. So I decided to prepare bingo worksheets for them, but there's a bingo word for each student, yes, and there's a group of cards with the words, and children one by one take the card from the group and try to find the word on their boards if they have it. So they put the card on it and then they complete a line. Yes, and then they say bingo.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Great. So it sounds very interactive. So yeah, so they touch it. They
Maybe
touch the
Alina
word.
can share the document because it looks very nice.
All
and-
right. So would you like to share the screen,
Show
or you
it.
would like to share?
Yes.
So I'm gonna stop my sharing, and you should be able to share it.
I can show it.
And definitely, if you don't mind, please share it again in this. So try to attach it or send it to us. Okay. Okay. Looks really good.
So this is like sight words bingo. Yes, students get. This is an example of a board, and here are the cards to cut. So the teacher has to cut out the sight words below, mix them up, and then the kids play. So it's
Incredible. Thank you. So again, if you can do it, please share it with us. You may send it to the group. We would appreciate that so much, because definitely it's like, I already see it using in my second grade, actually, tomorrow maybe. So that's a very nice opportunity to
there are a lot of
implement these things.
such worksheets on the internet. Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah. So again, it's a great opportunity to, to share the insights, to share the preferences of your work, and it could be useful for different teachers. And for me, actually, I learn a lot from these courses. Great, thank you. So anything else to add to the activities of group number 4?
Yes, of course.
Svetlana?
Because we have the perfect activities for writing, for speaking, and for listening, but I didn't remember who will describe our writing. Sorry.
All right. So anybody?
I remember that I should to present my variant. It's a necklace of words. Really, it's very interesting, not just for children with a Down syndrome. I can share my screen and present it. Okay, we have the sheet of paper with the word, and we have the box with the letters. And they should find the correct letters to write the word, and it will be something like a necklace. It's so funny for me.
Okay, it's about the sensory, application of their sensoric stuff, like vision and touching, and that's incredible. Yeah. So where do you get those letters, actually?
I don't know. Maybe you can buy it in Montpensier. It's true. I saw a lot of them, and in like AliExpress, of course. And I know that we have a lot of different variants in Rosetka, but we should to make a place for
the whole the thread.
And and in prom, I think there are a lot of, and we have a lot of communities for teachers with the with these things for art and anywhere.
Incredible.
Okay, and about speaking, it's my turn. I will present my board game. It's a Toka-Boka Wearing. Toka-Boka is very popular for in the children's society. I don't know.
My child, I know this game. Sorry, I have to interrupt. So don't say Toka-Boka aloud, because my daughter is going to rush in and say,
it's perfect.
Where is it? Where's Toka-Boka?
my daughter is too young for this game, but I'm still waiting. Okay, it's about the turn taking and communicative skills. We can speaking about the dressed up this girl, and I can ask my student to give me please for example pink t-shirt or black jeans or something like this. We can play and discuss, and it will be funny as for me.
Incredible. I like it. Even if the students don't know about that game, but I'm sure they do, it's very interactive again, because you can, again, you're touching that kind of piece of clothing.
We decided that all of our colleagues in our group, we use a lot of songs for our speaking activities, and about the sounds, about the some words, about everything. And my favorite song, not just for students with Down syndrome, because I haven't it, fortunately, because I don't know how to work with them. It's a very big challenge as for
We're
me.
learning here.
Yeah, and I choose the song to improve knowledge about the difference between letters and sounds. It's an ABC song with letters and sounds, like something like A is for apple, apple. Okay, and
Yeah,
the link
cool.
for this. And
Thank you.
that's all about speaking, about listening. Olena will tell you more.
Thank you. So B is for bus and so on. Fortunately, I know those songs as well. Too many of them. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Elementary
Thank you.
school. Understand.
Perfect. Yeah, perfect. So we all know that. Incredible. Yeah, so we're lucky to have that much, because like recently, well, not recently, but years ago, we had to have a boom box or something, like a special tool, like a huge cassette player or something, to have the kind of listening introduced in the class. But now we can have just our smartphones and just a speaker, and that's perfect. Right, cool. So where do we go next?
About listening, Olena will tell.
There's actually not much to add for listening. Again, we're talking about using a lot of songs, miming repetitive songs that have a lot of repetitive words. A good one, like the group number 1 mentions, using Simon Says for practicing classroom instructions, rules that students mimic, and they get into the habit of doing, and they know what the teacher wants from them when they're not playing. In my classes, I instead of saying Simon Says, I said we play Teacher Says.
Okay.
And so when during the lesson, they always like, you didn't say Teacher Says, and I'm like, we're not playing the game anymore.
That's even better. Thank you.
Yeah. Another thing, bingo was mentioned by someone here, and I haven't named the activity listen and sort out, but any story about, like, if we're talking about jobs, can be listened to, and students have flashcards. You can put the flashcards around the classroom, and they point out when they hear the word, or they can show it if you have a lot of flashcards. So like that, or they can work in groups and for example, collect the lunchbox of Tom, Emma, and so forth.
Incredible. Yeah.
By even having like fruits, toys, magnets, pictures, and so forth.
Cool that you bring those things about like the things that they can touch, that they can interact with. That's really important, not just for students with special needs, but for regular students as well. Thank you. That's incredible. Definitely. So that's a set of incredible activities and a set of inspiration, I would say, because that's what we want to do. It requires preparation. It requires time. It requires going to that store you've mentioned about. It requires ordering some stuff, but then when you have it, you can see the results, and it definitely works. So thank you so much for that, group number 4. And yes, we can come back. We have 2 options. Either come back to group number 2 and see if their secrecy is still on top, or we can move to group number 3. So it's up to you, anybody. The group number 3, you're welcome to make your comments. So tell us about. So again, we have Simon Says songs. Spread the pictures on the table. Very good. So please say something. Share your experience. Share your vision. And by the way, those who demonstrated the screen, so Svetlana and Alina, can you please share those things in this file or in the Telegram group? So we will be happy to hear that, to see those activities, because definitely we want to use them. All right, so I think you are going to have a chance to look through that, and let's not waste more time, because we're not wasting, definitely. But if there are no more comments to this, I do appreciate your work, and if you have any questions at this point, connected with the activities, connected with the toolkit. So again, you're going to get another portion of the toolkit for working with students with learning disabilities and physical disabilities. And again, next Thursday, we hope to have Anne Clement here presenting on those topics. And again, thank you for having your questions today. So be ready with your questions next time as well. So we appreciate that activity because, you know, interaction and communication is what we need here. And yes, please prepare some more activities for the next time, because that is really what we are here for. So to share the activities, to share your visions, to share your experience, because definitely each of these teachers have a lot of things to share, and that's incredible. So questions, any comments, anything to add? Okay, cool. Thank you. So you were really productive, and I believe it's really good to finish a bit sooner. So if there are no more questions, thank you for being here today. Hope it was productive, it was interesting. And next time, whenever we have a chance to work with such students, we will be confident about that. Thank you again, and have a good evening. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Goodbye. Have a nice day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye bye.
you.
Bye.
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 Bye.